I would like to invite a new speaker, my colleague Anna Klenovsek, project advisor in CINEA, because she will tell us all she knows about a new type of project that technical assistance replication call. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Julia, and good afternoon, everyone. It's been a long day, but full of very interesting information. And as Julia said, I will present to you the new call that is going to be, well, that was just published last week, actually. And that was already briefly presented this morning by Amberil. So my presentation will first focus a bit on, well, the rationale behind this call, why we decided to publish it. And then I will explain a bit more on the budget, on the evaluation criteria, but I will mostly focus on giving you some examples of what kind of proposals we would expect from this call. So let's start. Next slide, please. Well, the idea behind this call is that a TAR project, they would help us with upscaling and replication of results from other projects funded by the LIFE program or by other EU-funded programs. So this is important here to note that it's not only for building on let's say, LIFE projects, but also on other EU-funded projects. The idea behind the TAR call is to help projects to overcome barriers and obstacles that they sometimes face and to help them actually reach their full potential. So we know, like we project advisors, closely monitoring projects, that many of the projects already do a very great job actually, but that their experiences and results are not always taken forward for the maximum impact. And with TAR projects, we would like to change this. As Anne already said in the morning, and I would also like you to take note of this, that the actions addressed in a TAR project should go still beyond the normal, what we expect from a LIFE project, the normal sustainability requirements, the so-called afterlife phase. So it should go beyond that. It should build on that. Also, maybe to mention at this point is that the preceding project on which the TAR will be built should finish before the start of the TAR project. Sorry. Next slide, please. So this is also what I'm going to repeat, but I think it's very important that this call is only for, next slide, well, next, please, that it's only for the environment field. So not for climate and energy, but only for sub-programs, nature and biodiversity and circular economy and quality of life. Next. Yes, back, please. And important also to know that there will be only one topic. So one topic for nature and biodiversity and circular economy and quality of life. So basically all the proposals, they will compete against each other. Next. So this is pretty straightforward, I think. The available budget we have is 6.5 million. And the co-financing rate is set at 60% with a maximum of 1 million euros of co-financing per project. So based on this, you can already imagine what kind of a budget a typical TAR project would have. And by this, you could see that we could be financing around 6 to 12 projects. On the evaluation award criteria, we will evaluate the proposals based on their relevance, the impact, that is the most important, and it will be weighted 1.5, the quality and the resources used. Also, please remember that there will be no bonus points. So we keep it simple. Next slide, please. And now I will try to present a bit how we imagine this. But so we in the call document that I invite you to read carefully, you will see that we developed the project scope around the 4 dimensions. So the spatial, societal, financial, and thematic. This was based on our experience as project advisors. But please note that this list is really non-exhaustive. So this is the first year we published this call, and it's also an experiment for us. So for us to see what is actually needed on the ground, what kind of needs projects and beneficiaries have. So let's go through. Please, next slide. So under spatial dimension, we could see transfer of results of successful projects beyond the geographical boundaries of the project. So to other EU member states or to third countries associated to the LIFE program. If I give a more concrete example, we could have a project that developed a pay-as-you-throw system in several municipalities to reduce residual waste and to increase recycling rates. So these technologies, these practices could be then implemented maybe in another country, in other municipalities, where such practices, such waste management practices are not yet put in place. Or maybe we had an example of a project that developed a certification system for olive oil coming from biodiversity-friendly olive groves. So such a certification system could again be replicated in other parts of Europe. The other example could be widening the network of protected areas. So to identify and designate additional protected sites in line with the EU Biodiversity Directive. Also, sometimes, when we follow our projects, we see that a project is very successfully performing, I don't know, let's say nature conservation activities in a certain country. But later on, when the project is being implemented, they realize that, oh, this problem is actually a bit out of control, and it should be tackled at a more international level, and to make the results long lasting. So maybe in that case, they could use the TAR project following their project to maybe create an international platform of countries affected by this problem that could help them share knowledge and know-how and maybe prepare strategies and to go for a common approach. Next slide, please. So the next one is a societal dimension, and here we put examples of projects that could be removing local, regional, national legislative barriers to help us ensuring sustainability. For instance, sometimes results of a project could become a measure in CAP, in Common Agriculture Policy, but they're not yet. So a TAR could be actually used to propose the steps to get it into the program, like by drafting a measure, by building support of the community, by working with the Ministry of Agriculture, for instance. We could see substantial transfer of knowledge to either to other relevant stakeholders in another country or sector. For instance, what comes to my mind is a project that successfully tested a new innovative method of eradicating or removing invasive alien species in a specific country. And now they have this knowledge that they could share through trainings of technicians in, let's say, another country or another region. And we could also see extensive awareness raising campaigns with the goal of achieving considerable behavioral change. So in LIFE, we already saw very successful projects that implemented nationwide campaigns, let's say, on reduction of food waste, which could be easily replicated in other countries where this issue has not been addressed yet. Next slide, please. So we have the financial dimension, where TAR could actually facilitate the access to other EU or non-EU financial instruments. Well, basically, where if there is finance lacking, a TAR could be used to actually draft an application to a suitable financing source. And the other one is more appropriate for business or close to market projects, where additional steps would be needed to effectively market the product or service. Here I need to add a disclaimer that the projects that already benefited from C2M support under LIFE would not be eligible for this call, under this call, just to avoid double funding. Next slide, please. And yeah, so thematic dimension. Here we could see projects' impacts replicated in other thematic areas. Here you already have 2 examples on the screen. And so we could see a technology or a practice that was developed in a project on nature and biodiversity that to be applied via a TAR project to help improve soil quality. Or we could see a technology or practice that was helping to reduce dangerous chemicals applied in a TAR project on water. So next slide. The timeline, as I said, the call was opened last week, and we plan to close it on 27th of July. So you might wonder why the deadline is shorter than other calls. And here, basically, we wanted to differentiate this call from others and give a clear message that the applications should be simpler. They should contain less details. Also, for your information, the application form is shorter. It will only allow you 50 pages compared to 120 in SAP call. So basically, yeah, we request less detail, and we also give you less time for this. We plan to notify by the end of the year, and then we expect to sign the grant agreements in early spring 24. So this was quickly all from my side. Next slide. If there are any questions on Slido, I will check with Julia and we'll try to answer them. And if we don't manage, we'll come back to you with correct replies.
Thank you very much, Anna. There are some questions in Slido, so let's show it there. And I'm generally looking forward to see the first project of this type starting next year. For the people on the other side of the screen, once again, please take your time to, take the opportunity and this time to ask your question in Slido. So let's see what is in Slido for us. It should be coming soon. I don't see yet, but I know that a few questions were there. They were also asked this morning. So indeed, Anna, you are my only speaker, so I'll just read and you answer, all right?
Yeah, I have no plan B.
Indeed. Who can submit proposal for TA replication? Should the partnership be the same as the project to be replicated, or should there be at least one partner or not? I guess one more partner, yeah.
Well, basically, there's no rule. Nothing is written in the call document. But ideally, if you plan to replicate, we would expect that there would be some partner involved. But even if there is not, you should probably still ensure this know-how, exchange of know-how and skills from the partners involved in the first project, right? So, it's not necessarily, but we would encourage that a partner, maybe the coordinate beneficiary, or at least one of the partners would be involved, but it's not necessary.
Good, thanks, Anna. So is it possible to replicate the results of a previous LIFE project that has not finished?
Here, as I already mentioned, you can submit a proposal, a TAR proposal, when the previous project is still running. But by the time the TAR project is planned to start, the previous project has to finish. I hope this was clear.
Yeah, I think so. Very clear. So, can projects being implemented with non-EU funding, or that have been implemented with non-EU funding, qualify for the TAR grants?
Well, the precondition is that for the preceding project, that EU funding was used. So I think the answer is no.
Yes. So could TAR projects be carried out by consortium members of the initial project?
They could be. We would, of course, encourage to include also new additional partners, but the old consortium, yeah, as well. There are no limits.
Yeah, I think I'm learning, and I could even answer the next question, but I will still leave it to you. So, an Interreg project successfully finished can be eligible for that TA replication.
Yes.
Ah, I knew that. All right. So must a project which is funded under a different EU program be completed in total, or just the aspect that would be replicated for live TAR be acceptable?
I'm afraid that the previous project would have to be completed, finished. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Then I have another question from Aushra. So what KPI do you expect for TAR project?
If this is referring to the KPIs that we're collecting, well, this depends. As I presented, like examples of potential TAR projects, this is, you know, we have apples and pears together. So it's really difficult to say. I mean, it really depends, I think, on a specific TAR project. I mean, if a project is really tackling, let's say, air quality, I mean, there would be KPIs linked to that. If we have a project that applies for additional funding, many of the KPIs we normally use would not be applicable. So a bit difficult to reply.
Yes, thank you very much. So is there a pipeline of projects recommended to be replicated by the TAR projects?
Not sure if I understand completely, but I would not say so. This is completely open call to anyone. So we don't recommend any ongoing or closed projects, not that we approach them with this idea. Yeah.
And as usual, you are the one that know your project best. So you know if there is still some replication activities that should be financed and pushed. You're many out there. So next one. Would it be possible to have a monitoring TA in the future? There is a dire need to monitor project results also after the project, but funding is limited.
I'm not sure if monitoring would really could be seen as the replication or removal of barriers that projects face. I see monitoring more as a recurrent action that follows. So I would lean more towards no, unfortunately.
Thank you very much, Anna. And then I have a question from Francisco. So are demonstrators from projects funded by EU funds, but by an institution from a member state eligible? Next Generation EU, for instance.
If I understand the question, I would say yes.
Yeah.
If it's funded by the EU funds and institution from an EU member state, that should be eligible, yes.
Yeah. And what I would say in all these cases, Anna, is if it's so specific, maybe do not hesitate to really ask us the question, because that's very specific. Exactly. And we don't know all the EU funds by heart. So I still do not know about the topics for this year. I don't know if this question is actually related to this session. TAR, you do have somehow topics. I mean, what you presented before, Anna?
The topic, well, yeah, it's the environment field. So it's nature, biodiversity, and climate, and circular economy and quality of life. This is the one topic, and it's quite wide, and that's it.
And if you are referring to all the other calls, the calls are published. So you know the topics. If you check the calls, The only one that is not published yet is the one on clean energy transition, but nevertheless, you will have a lot of information in the session tomorrow. And there will be all the session on the different sub-programs. So if you have not understood the topics that are presented in the call documents, please join the sub-program session tomorrow and you will understand them better. And then I see another question there. So you mentioned that something is not eligible to avoid double funding. Can you please repeat this information? I didn't catch it so quickly. Anna,
yes,
speak slowly on this one. It's important.
Okay, yes. The only time I mentioned double funding, if I'm not mistaken, was when I was talking about close to market projects. So under LIFE, like more business-oriented projects, we call them close to market. They can only benefit from some advice, some business advice from our side. And also in the TAR call, like such projects, business-oriented projects can apply, but not the same ones and as already benefited from this C2M advice. So yeah, in order to avoid the double funding, but it was only related to this part.
Thank you very much, Anna, on this. So how long should the project be?
Well, this depends, but the maximum duration is 5 years.
Okay, thank you very much. And can a UNDP project apply for TAR?
No.
I think the answer is no. Big no on this one. And as I have understood, could it be also asked for Horizon Europe projects?
Yes, but for all the all the projects that were financed by EU funding, it always maybe I didn't put enough emphasis on this, but it should always be in line with the objectives of LIFE, right? All the preceding projects should also be in line with the LIFE objectives, right? But the answer is yes.
So the objectives still need to fit the objectives of LIFE overall.
Exactly.
So yes, so she has understood, and we can move to the next question. How long time, years after the LIFE project and the achieved results can be funded by a TAR?
Oh, that's a good question.
Have we set a limit?
I don't think there is a limit. So basically, as long as it makes sense, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
But there is no limit. Yeah.
How long it makes sense, though. If in the meanwhile the replication has been achieved, there is no point in having an extra project on this.
Exactly.
All right. So still 5 minutes. I think you'll be the winner of answering all questions. If we are planning a follow-on a SAP project for a successful LIFE SAP, which increases geography scope, would TAR be a preparation grant for this? Or instead? I read it again. I think possibly yes, but so if we're planning a follow-on SAP for a successful LIFE SAP, which increases geography scope, would TAR be a preparation grant for this or instead? Anna?
I mean, it could be. It could be. Now it really depends, how they present it and how they pack it in the application form. So
yes, and there is a thing I learned from your presentation and from our talks on this is that this should not substitute the obligatory replication activities that you should still have under a SAP project. So
absolutely.
Indeed, the yes to this answer, it really focused on the increased geography and scope, even for the replication activities of the project itself.
Yeah.
So then another question, can the replication be focused on only on a specific result of a previous LIFE project?
Yes, can be replication of a specific result or just of a sort of solving the issue with a specific barrier, or an obstacle that the previous LIFE project faced. So yeah, it could be.
I hope Maria Huertas and Rubio were happy with your reply. And then we go to Justina and Grigaravacina. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I they did wrong for sure. Should be results replicated in corpore, or could be adapted, slightly modified according to needs of another project?
I think it should be modified, in a way that, again, I'm repeating myself, that it makes sense. I wouldn't just replicate something, for the sake of replicating it, but that it makes sense and that it really can result in the biggest impact.
Yes, and yes, indeed. And what is crucial is that it should never be just a phase 2 of an old project in the same way, in the same place. We really have to go beyond that. So, exactly. Is TAR projects an annual call? Do you have the crystal ball, Anna?
I'm looking into it. Well, I cannot say yes or no to this one yet. There should be, in principle, another call in 2024, so next year.
And then we start a new programming period, so we will see, right? It depends on the new multi-annual work plan.
But it's not 100% yes, but
it will also depend on the success of this one. I have
absolutely.
So I would say we will not reply to all of them. Anna, is there any other question that you would really like to pick because you find them they are super important and valid? I'll pick one and then I'll let you pick the next. So would it be a valid TA if replicator monitoring method that was used for one species, birds, is used for another species, mammal?
Yeah, I mean, if this is maybe if this was really an innovative method, never used before, then used in another for another mammal, that could maybe work.
Yeah, although a monitoring
difficult
method
to say
would be limited to a project, not really something that you replicate, and of course it has to be really applicable to the other species. So be careful on something like this. So Anna, the next one that you would like to take?
I don't know. I see there's one on communication, education focus. I was mentioning the awareness raising campaigns. If done in line with life objectives, that could also be the focus of a TAR project.
Yes. Yeah. And maybe this question could have also a broader aspects on other calls, so you can also see in the sub-program sessions of tomorrow which type of communication education activities you have in mind, if it's actually we are able to fund them under one of the other calls. All right. Thank you very much, Anna, for your words of wisdom, for your help. Please, participants, take 2 seconds to tell us what you thought about this session in the Slido. The few questions that are not answered, maybe we can still reply them privately, so keep on checking your Slido. And if not, if they are really relevant, we will also add them to the frequently asked questions. And all the materials of today and tomorrow, yes, you can find them online very, very soon, at the latest in a few days.